Chapter 153. The sun has set for an hour, and I am giving the finishing touches to what will be the most devastating explosive device this world has ever seen. I used the sarcophagus as a base, its isolating protective spells enough to protect it against all but the most determined assaults. Unfortunately, the lid needs to be opened to start the countdown, but I deem it a necessary precaution. For a primer, I have a simple yet sturdy contraption based around the clock and a generous amount of mercury fulminate, linked to enough white phosphorus to melt down a factory. The heat of the primary explosion will be concentrated through a double circle and used to break the orb's containments. All of them. Simultaneously. Kersha helped with understanding how the orbs work. There are glyphs inscribed in their base that stabilize them because, as it turns out, life energy compressed to the size of a fist can be quite volatile. How truly surprising. It was a simple matter of manipulation to weaken their containment. Once it is done, the explosive release will create a significant amount of damage if the frozen, panicked smile on the prisoner faces any indication. He must have asked 11 times if I was quite sure. I placed the last orb in its improvised casing and smile. This will be glorious, nay, historical. I only regret that I will not be able to see it explode, one way or another. No one can trigger the device and run far enough to escape its blast. Phineas barges into the secure room I liberated as I perform one last check. He holds in his hands a dark satin undergarment with little wild frills on the thighs. I have it. I have found it. I blink very slowly and my mind leaves the labyrinthine depths of military engineering to recall our past conversation. Ah. Is this not the garter belt you requested? Well, yes, that is to say, well. Out with it, woman, time is precious. About that. I fear that when I listed a garter belt among the necessary supplies, I was speaking in jest. Phineas' face crumbles, aghast. I apologize for the deception. I let my excitement carry me away. The bomb is ready. Do you have any idea how difficult it was to find a garter belt around here? Do you think that I went from district to district, knocking on the doors of the most renowned hussies? I can only offer my most heartfelt apologies. It was inappropriate. I sniff the air, a new aroma now overcoming that of tightly packed phosphorus. I see that you were able to offer some incentive to separate the item from its owner. If the skeletons do not kill you, I will. It takes only a moment for me to calm Phineas down as he can see how contrite I am about the whole fiasco. We pack up and make the leave until I realize that we will need some sort of card, if only for the sake of balancing the bomb. Fortunately, it appears that Marlin has taken my proposal seriously for once. Jimena is here, as well as Anatole and his team. The leadership recognizes the potential use of your device. We are to provide escort, the blonde fake prince intones in a cold voice. I understand his reticence. While he is saddled with the role of guardian, the other teams are fighting on the front lines. His being the least experienced true night team, the leadership must have considered him as non-essential. I would be more worried about a bomb that would scatter us over the whole of Lesser Poland if it sets off while we are around, but he has always had a terrible sense of priorities. We can depart, I tell him with just a bit of condescension, just to needle him a bit. Jimena rolls her eyes for a second, then we are off. My sister kindly organized a cart and a lower nightmare to drive it. I decide not to call on Metas out of respect for Phineas, who would remain on foot. The only mounted person will be Kersha, who follows us at a safe distance on a horse he rides with the grace of a sack of potatoes. We leave at a brisk pace through wide-open double doors. The pungent smell of fermented hops hits me as soon as I see the sky. We are under a brewery. Enchantments keep the stench at bay, until you open the doors at least, Jimena explains in a low voice. Anatole leads the way without hesitation out of the compound, then out through tilled fields and the golden stalks still to be harvested. The warm summer air still carries the scent of cut wheat and dust, and a few lamps and torches shine on top of locked doors. No one looks through their windows even as wheels growl on packed earth. We hurry. 30 minutes through tamed land and we hear distant guns. I express my surprise. The mortals are still fighting? They engaged the invaders in the early afternoon. Several detachments of the Austrian army as well as Polish militia units have fought back and forth for hours, to and from the village of Tarnozyk, which is currently in the skeletal hands of the opposition. The skeletons themselves have held back, instead deploying a stupendous amount of soldiers and beasts. Manfred replies, clearly impressed. We continue and find our first bodies soon enough, mostly soldiers fleeing the front lines who died from their wounds. An aura flares in the distance, a clear beacon to those with any sort of sense. We move forward when I hear a commotion ahead, as well as a mighty roar, one I recognize. A Murghol broodmother. They are quite dangerous. Squad, forward. Team Willow, Jimena, you will keep moving the package, Anatole orders and half of the group charges forward. We hear sounds of battle, intense and bloody, and finally a great yowl as we arrive upon a field through a curtain of trees. The great, horrendous shape of a broodmother still twitches on the ground. It's not her, I refuse. Form bleeds from many small wounds and a few devastating gouges that would have cleaved a cow in twain. I recognize my kinson's subtle touch. There are also mortals in the clearing. They are cavalrymen in stained uniforms who look exhausted. 2 dead horses lie on the ground, with their riders still holding blood-stained sabers in their shaky hands. The vampires discuss their fates in low voices. Anatole, I say, you should know that you stand in the presence of the commander of yesternight's mortal forces. His pale blue gaze travels disparagingly over the gathering of terrified humans. It stops at the short shape of the mustached Colonel Reisig, now much less polished and bleeding from the gash in his shoulder. He is the only one who hasn't taken a step back yet. Will he be an issue? I believe that he wishes to return to his lines. I am certain that we can come to an understanding, I tell him, feeling a natural respect for a man who leads an artillery battalion. You have 2 minutes. Barring this, they will only be a few more corpses on a field that already has too many. I nod and make my way forward, Phineas and Esmeralda covering my back. Colonel Reisig sees us approach with obvious distrust, and yet he does not move. I do not know how I would react if I saw unknown combatants with the sort of abilities that Anatole's team just displayed. I allow myself a smile. The good colonel stares at me with growing suspicion, his memory hazy after such an exhausting battle. His eyebrows finally rise when I stop a few paces away from his anxious mount. You. The peasant girl. Gutton, I bent. I see that you have found our foes. You deceived me. Do you know how many? I interrupt his sputtering with a raised hand, charming him into silence. Have you missed the part where we saved your men? We share the same enemies, you were just unaware of the fact. You're witches. Witches and sorcerers. And mages and whatever you wish to call us. It matters not. We are being attacked by devils and their worshippers. I merely showed you the truth before they could collect too many innocents. I do not trust you. I will never believe you or your kind. He is livid. Any supernatural attempt at calming him down now would lead to suspicion. Do as you wish. We have no need of your approval to carry out our mission, the elimination of those monsters and the closing of the gate from whence they came. A portal to hell? They certainly did not pop out of a fairy circle, I lightly comment. The colonel still glares with his furious eyes, mustache unkempt after a day of fighting. Now that I am close, the cloying smell of horse and human sweat almost overwhelms that of blood and offal. I do not trust you, and still I must ask. Where do these things come from? I frown. You engaged them yesterday. You were within working distance of their gate. You saw us? We fought by your side, from the shadows, as always. You should have saved your artillery guns. I know. Damn it. He takes a deep breath and I use the opportunity to exploit the chip in his self-righteous armor. Those creatures are news to you, but we have been fighting their kind for decades. You were just blind to it. My declaration is welcomed with various reactions from the onlookers, which is much better than overwhelming censure. Are the end times upon us then? The colonel finally asks to himself. Not if we can help it. Speaking of which, you should return to your men. We have demons to slay, no? Perhaps they come here because of you, the evil worshippers. He declares, but his heart is not in it and I merely chuckle. If you think we are the only sinners, you have not been paying attention. Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Isaac. If we both make it through the night, you should be on your way now. The man grinds his teeth. Only his sense of duty prevents him from asking more questions, I think. He was already paranoid when we met. How his natural curiosity must war with his distrust now. The beast is dead, gentlemen, let us head back. Roz. And they are gone. Is it wise to let them go? Phineas asks with a frown. I shrug. Tonight's events will ruin the reputation of spellcasters anyway. I would rather not deny our allies a capable commander. If you are done, we should leave, Anatole interrupts with obvious impatience. We are nearly at the beacon. We leave the road and follow a beast trail through a well-traveled forest. The ground is quite trampled and we do not have to wait long until we find a clearing where a dozen mortal mages finish setting up a circle. They work under the supervision of a dark-skinned lord with close-cropped hair and a long beard, wearing robes of exotic make. He turns to us as we arrive. Greetings, Anatole starts. Unfortunately, we do not have the time for pleasantries. Casters, please come and join me. Now. Phineas, the vessel and I detach from our rank. The Archmage points at several circles slaved to the main construct. Compared to what I used to cast, his work is that of a true master, and it took him less than an hour. He also successfully modified the base spell to allow for additional mages to bolster it. Impressive. You were the first to deploy the hex? The man asks as we take our positions. To my knowledge, yes. Were you the first to cast it here in a combat situation? Oh, yes. Then you will start the casting and I will focus on the essence management. Do you understand? I have cast with an Archmage before. I know how to proceed. I will direct the spell while you provide the power. Very good. I, Ismail, consent to it. He speaks with the rhythmical intonation of one who repeats a ritual sentence, and so I refrain from pointing out that he was the one to ask. I take my place and sigh in delight. This circle is a masterwork. I can feel the connection of over 30 mages in a circle so wide that it could encompass a small city. Their power thrums through the inscriptions, smooth and pleasant instead of overwhelming, thanks to Ismail's careful management. The proper runes have all been inscribed in smooth rock covered with silver powder. Everything is ready, and not a second too soon. The world bends and pulls inward, its life force draining. The circle reacts instantly as every mage present resists it on the fumes of a previous casting. What is this? A tug of war? I grumble as I reform my link. An accurate if childish assessment, Ismail reproaches. Now that you are here, we should win easily. You were the first to cast, therefore it is a proprietary spell. He must see the incomprehension on my face because he sighs and elaborates. The world remembers, and the world remembers you. A spell is always the strongest for the one who made it, with or without help. Enough talk. We do not know what the skeletons are doing and we do not intend to find out. Now, cast. He is correct. I center myself, take a deep breath. Power rushes through me, the might of dozens of war mages. Normally, I could not manage this much power, but Ismail is here to guide it, weave it into the mighty construct. I activate each rune in turn, and voice the incantation. Stubborn foot and clenching jaws. Downward boot and closing maws. Blades are drawn, the light is gone. Gates are shut, your time is done. Because of me, the spell is cast with full effect, and because of Ismail, the power of our aids is fully employed. Our might breaks the stalemate and tranquility descends like a shroud upon the land. Life essence shivers then settles down. The enemy efforts have been rendered meaningless. We hear a distant, terrible moan. No human throat could produce this. What was that? Phineas whispers. I hear a hoarse panic behind us and Kershaw walks into the clearing under the disapproving glare of Ismail. One of the gods grieves, he whispers. Their pain is of no import, the old lord grumbles. He lifts a hand and launches a spell that arches into the air before glowing like a flare. Somewhere in front of us, a great roar echoes throughout the empty night. Soon, the din of battle reaches us through the thick brambles. We will proceed forward now. "Do you have your explosive device?" Ismail asks. "Yes," I answer guardedly, but he merely smiles. "I remember a time when Greek fire ruled the seas, little one. I approve of your ingenuity. You will follow with your team and the prisoner, but you will not engage. We are yet to approach the main hold." He sprints away and I follow with the rearguard, including the mortal mages. We come across the scene of a ruined village surrounded by blackened, fallow land. Only burnt wrecks remain of the buildings. To our left, the fields are covered in corpses of hounds and armored servants, while a few lines of white and dun uniforms show where the Austrian and Polish assaults came to a halt. In front of us, the vampire force is shredding through battered and beleaguered enemies, exhausted after a day of fighting. I come in time to see a trio of skeletons fly up unchallenged into the darkness of the night. Only one has remained and it even now emits a terrible keening sound. It is not the eighth but another one, imposing and clad in golden armor. As I watch, it raises a hand and launches powerful fire lances at the fleet figure of Comenius. The ancient lord dodges them with blinding speed while, beyond, vampires scatter to allow the two ancient horrors free rein. I am surprised to see that the undead age is on the offensive, destroying everything its staff touches with great explosions. Comenius, however, fights much more defensively. Like Anatole, his sole weapon is a twin set. He wields a Roman scutum and gladius, which would make him very, very old indeed. His defensive style allows him to dodge most strikes and block what he cannot avoid. As I watch, the undead sends a great wave of fire his way. When the spell fizzles, the ancient lord stands from behind his shield, unharmed. It would seem that Rose is not the only soul weapon with special properties, because Comenius should have been torched until only ashes remain. A shield does not stop heat coming from the sides. The lord charges in turn and pushes the creature back with fast, precise strikes. The skeleton howls again and brings his staff down. The world burns around it, but Comenius is already gone. He stands facing his foe as it rises from the resulting crater. Magna Arca. Even though he must be far from his land, the power of the Lord's answers. I hear the words and experience that peculiar feeling of the watcher seeping through the cracks of reality. Comenius turns into a dark-winged, demonic figure and points his blade forward. At the same time, Ismail unleashes his spell. A mighty ray of dark light links both the archmage and the skeleton across 100 paces. The skeleton freezes and so does the mage, locked as they are in a mental contest of will. I can feel the might of the mind magic from here. As for the result of the war, we shall never find out, because Comenius charges. The angelic and demonic figure lands on the skeleton and smashes it to pieces. Ismail reels back from the shock. By that point, the field is ours. The surviving servants run away, leaving their hounds to be slaughtered. The rearguard moves down into the remains of the village. To the right, I see an altar surrounded by alien sigils. What is that? Phineas asks. I study the strange structure. A massive stone slab occupies the backyard of some large edifice, now an unrecognizable ruin. I noticed no such a thing the last time we inspected the village, so this must be a recent addition. The closer we get and the more detail I discern. The richer life energy in the air shows that we are approaching the epicenter of what the invaders attempted. Even the grass seems more vibrant. The rune work soon appears not just on the ground but in the air as well, where they float with fading light like dying embers. The small vortex of energies disperses from the slab in a gentle, immaterial breeze as refreshing as light rain after a summer drought. On the slab, we find a woman. She is old and wizened, just as bald as Kershaw but clearly feminine. In death, her naked form lacks the puppet quality that some corpses have. A black dagger is lodged in her chest. A complex attire is folded at her feet. She died recently. What sort of ritual were they conducting? What can they achieve with one sacrifice that their orbs cannot do? Phineas asks, surprised. His knowledge of spellcraft is still lacking, but in this situation, it would not have helped. We are facing an entire new brand of magic. Although, I can infer the purpose of the ritual. Feel the power in the dagger. They were channeling energy into it, not out. They were pushing life into the woman. The elegant man raises a dubious brow. Would it not be counterproductive to stab her then? They were creating another undead mage, you daft twit. I finish. Oh. A bit hurried, is it not? I shrug. Who knows what goes in the craniums of those strange beings? The old man killed the 15th, Kershew says in a subdued voice as Kameneus picks up the mage's skull. Some of us are collectors, and this is an unusual quarry. It was the 15th. I repeat. He was significantly weaker than the serpent mage despite being less than 10 ranks apart. 15th very strong. 8th to 1st. Different. Best gods. But 15th and 8th are not in the same faction. What do you mean? So far, only the 8th's cohorts have been here. I was one of his servants. Now, the 3rd's cohort is here with their Murghol beasts. The 8th must have entered an agreement. This cannot be good, Phineas mutters, and Esmore shakes her head. You brought the prisoner here? A rugged voice says behind us. I felt his aura, of course, and did not turn. He has valuable insights on the current situation, I inform Kameneus as I face him. He and Ismail are soon joined by Octave and other senior knights while a slightly intimidated Kershew relays what he observed. If we were only attacked by a faction before, then the invaders have a lot more troops to commit to their cause. We must take the gate before they call upon too many reinforcements. Nights are short right now, and so is our window of opportunity, Marlin remarks. This changes nothing, Kameneus grumbles. We were on full attack against an unknown number of enemies before and we are doing the same now. Enough talk. We leave. The ancient monster walks forward without waiting for further input, soon joined by the entirety of the Dvir contingent. There is little to do but to follow. We soon reach the woods surrounding the enemy base for the 3rd time in as many nights. Just as before, I stay in the rear to guard our precious cargo. The vampires fan out before us to cover our approach. Soon, Ismail stops in the middle of the forest path. We have no need for another spell. Why? I ask, taking a few steps. Then I feel it. The interdiction area we cast yesterday still holds. The land is quiet and reticent. I have never been so glad to be made powerless, the dark-skinned man chuckles. He gestures and the mages fall back. Kameneus does not wait. We soon arrived at the scene of yesterday's battle. An entire section of the forest has been turned into a glass plain of scorched earth. Farther up, we find the battlefield where Isaac's men stopped and fought. It has been picked clean. Only a great mountain of hound carcasses remains, a stinking tower of purple flesh, rancid and vile. Not even the flies have picked at it. Not far now, I tell myself. We move a bit more, then the ground erupts in a great gout of flame, instantly killing a Dvermaster. Traps, Ismail growls, let me go first. Our progress slows to a crawl. I cannot feel the constructs, though I stand rather far. The heavy cover of the interdiction area allows our presence in little else. We may not cast. I suspect that even Magna Arcas might be subdued here, and yet our foes still manage to work their unholy arts to inflict more death. Ismail takes no risk. As soon as he spots a trap, he throws a few unidentified stones he removed from a recess of his robe. They trigger and spew their deadly payload into the air. Our advance is marked as clearly as if we carried beacons with us. Could they have moved the base? I wonder. No, Anatole says by my side, even they depend on supplies. It takes time to move and build a camp to accommodate thousands. They will not move unless we make them. He does not look at me. Instead, his blue eyes sweep our flanks, looking for anomalies. I always assumed that he would not give me the time of the day, much less explain things. Perhaps he did make some progress. His insight soon proves warranted when Ismail gestures and we stop. He throws a stone and it flashes against an invisible wall, sending ripples across its smooth, flat surface. A shield, of a scale never seen before. The base lies nestled in its dying valley beyond sight and we will have to break it to move forward. Without magic, the task is nearly impossible. Members of the vanguard with soul weapons bang them helplessly against the colossal defense. It will take hours, hours that we do not have. Just as I consider my options, the impacts cease and the crowd falls silent. From the skies, the form of a skeleton mage holding an orb descends, majestic. Its robes move in the light wind like pennants and its great ivory snake tail twirls lazily. 6 others flank it, 3 on each side. All but the lords. Back up. Back up now, Octave declares, and I hear the concern in his voice. He will not have to repeat himself. We run. Even the nightmare we use senses the urgency of the situation. I turn around as we flee to take in the 8th as it lifts a gnarled hand. Its voice is warm and velvety. It does not fit its abominable image. As for the words, they are clipped and guttural, and I do not understand their meaning. What I do understand is that it is casting a spell from within the safety of the shield and that of the air, and we can do nothing to stop it. A white ball gathers between its claws. With one last word, he lets it fly. The spell explodes in a whitish, powdery veil that expands in a sphere. It covers the lords, even Comenius. It covers our front lines. It reaches me. I feel something poke my essence, then a cloak-like feeling as the spell settles on my aura like ink on paper. I look down to see whitish stars shining on my armor like a mirror of the Milky Way, not harmful but present. And all was visible. Shit, they marked us, I say. I felt something, Phineas said as he inspects a glove. Esmeralda shivers and scratches herself, clearly ill at ease. Looking forward, it has become clear that the entire vanguard is marked as well. The only ones exempt are the mortal mages. The 8th has figured out that we were different, which we should have expected when they started to resort exclusively to fire. Now, he is targeting us, and he is right. Without us, Krakow and its defenders will fall, then they will have free rein to defile the planet to fuel their disgusting rituals. I look up with no small amount of fear, convinced that the Serpent Mage will now release some seeking fire spell of great power against us. I wonder if I can run fast enough or if Rose will help, and yet it does not happen. The creature contemplates us like insects under its hollow gaze and flies away. The other creatures follow it in a cursed flock. We are alone. What just happened? Phineas asks, but no one replies. Some of us try to remove the whitish powder from our beings, in vain. I try as well and realize that it clings to us like an oily layer, and is just as impossible to remove. We have to restrain Esmeralda, who had started to claw at her skin. They marked us. Are they going to cast some grand spell? Probably. And if they can locate us, they will not even have to. What do you mean? She means, Anatole says, that if the creatures have somehow learned of our weakness, they will not even have to expend spells. Our best protection during the day has always been stealth. Now, they can just pick us off if they can find us. Karsha walks to us and sighs. Ah, bad. It is the Amker. Bad servants of this if they open the wrong gate. Take food. How long? I ask, how long does it last? I do not know. Bad servants always die first. Well, this is problematic. We quickly go and relate Karshu's finding to Octave and Comenius. The 2 leaders exchange a glace. We will have to scatter at least 3 hours before dawn. How much time do we have left? A bit over 2 hours. If we follow your plan, Ismail says as he joins, hands holding a massive brass watch. All shields draw on resources to be maintained and to resist attacks. We could try exhausting it. With that many soul weapons, anything is possible. Do you truly believe that we can breach that? Octave asks, looking behind him. The main group still bangs helplessly on a dome as white as a town. There is a chance. The skeletons are starved for resources, Ismail agrees. They have made liberal use of their orbs over the past few days and lost many of them. It makes little sense for the snake monster to let us go instead of eliminating us in one large conflagration, unless he would prefer to save his strength. The skeletons do not appear to need sleep, and they operate during the day without issue. They also fly while the mortals do not. The others consider the question. I would remark that the shield might consume more energy than a spell designed to track and destroy us, but the truth is that I have no idea how this branch of magic functions. The undead do not create life energy, the Vestal of Anatol's team says. Oh, of course. They cannot replenish their aura naturally like we do. They must take it from somewhere. Yes. And with the life energy around their base denied, they might not have had much opportunity to collect more safely. None of that matters. If we do not breach the shield, we cannot get into the base. Can we? I turned to Kershaw, clearly ill at ease in the middle of so many of us. He is starting to stink a bit as well. Is there a way to go though? Key? This. He mimics a barrier. Shield. Understood. This shield. Very strong. The gods use it to protect their houses. We need to get to the gate. Can you not open one? He asks. I wince. I do not know the ritual. Opening the gate is a complex, grueling process that leads to desert and hounds. Until now, I had no particular reason to learn it. I do not know the runes, I admit. Runes? I kneel and draw the dwarven symbols for looming disaster on the ground. Runes. I understand. If you want a gate with runes, can you use the first? The first? Kershaw nods. Before the gods come here, they make a gate to go back, not too far, so if there is a bad thing, they can get back to the last city. The runes are there. On the ground. All the vampires present stare at the men, with the notable exception of my teammates who do not speak German. Can the circle even be reactivated? Kermanius asks. It depends. We would need to see it to know for certain, Ismail replies. Then I think it best, the old man speaks between clenched teeth, if we focus on the plan at hand. Hold on, old friend. If the circle can be reactivated, we can send the bomb through. It would not close the gate that concerns us the most. Perhaps it would. Ariane, how powerful is that bomb, exactly? My intuition wakes and coils. For the shortest moment, visions of flame and a sound like tinnitus break through the heavy yoke of the interdiction spell. All of the last city will feel its touch. Some more, some less, I tell him. I see. Kermanius, Octave, I propose that their team pursues this lead with our image followers. Meanwhile, we will keep probing that shield. The investment is small and the potential benefits are immense. Miles per hour. I suppose that a handful of masters and neutered magic tossers will hardly make a difference. What do you say, duelist? Those are your minions after all. We prefer the term squire, Kermanius, Octave replies, but the gruff monster ignores him. Octave tilts his head and inspects the wall, still imperiously ignoring the weapons banging on its surface. I have no objection, but Team Aspen and Himena will stay. With all due respect, sir, if we successfully open the gates, someone needs to cover Ariane while she triggers the spell, Anatole says. Octave considers him in silence. Very well. You and your team will go. It should be more than enough. And like this, we are dismissed. Himena squeezes my hand before she joins the assault. Anatole signals and his team starts off behind an eager Kershaw. The free invader struts excitedly, reminding me of a Labrador on a stroll. The rest of us are more subdued. We share a general unease that proves warranted when Esmeralda changes into a wolf and starts pawing at her face. Her claws dig bloody furrows on her muzzle. She is not doing well, Phineas says. An understatement. We are left with no choice but to restrain her or risk her skinning herself alive. Manfred and the other fight to carry her limp form back to camp while the rest of us keep going. We cannot spare a caster and Phineas understands it, though he is unhappy about leaving the tiny Vanheim behind. We are off to an inauspicious start. A little bit later, we are forced to leave the cart behind as the forest grows too dense to navigate. I end up carrying the crate with Anatole while the human mages follow us in a loose column. Kershaw gets lost once. So much green. He explains to our unamused group. Your dog is starting to outlive his usefulness, Phineas remarks. Enough. It takes us almost half an hour to reach the second site between the detour and the time it takes the mages to climb the slope to our destination. We end up on top of a flat hillock populated by scrawny pines. 3 of the 4 sides lead to sheer cliff, with only the path we took being somewhat practicable. The undead mages chose well. More importantly, we are outside of the interdiction circle. Karshu excitedly points at the center of the elevation, though only a blind man could have missed the giant circle covering most of the free space. Runes have been engraved in the rock, and the air still smells of pine sap where trees were ripped apart and thrown away. Needles crack under the feet of the trudging mortals as they spread around the circle. I kneel to study the construct. They haven't changed anything, I realize as I trace the Western Standard rune for location. The captives they took in Krakow knew the proper way to set up a circle. Perhaps the skeletons saw no merit in altering a working construct. I would imagine that dimensional magic is a daunting prospect, especially when the cost of failures is unknown and one clings to its own existence with a dead grip, Anatole says. The question is, then, can you activate it? I check the different segments of the spell. I have seen it many times and mostly dismissed it as too complicated to bother, but now necessity needles me and I cannot help but discern the different components. Built on a base as old and solid as history itself, the spell then expands outward to reach more exotic and subtle parts, acquiring its true function. One segment speaks to me of a shard, a stinger, a needle that would jab and leave behind cleanly sliced flesh where blood would purl. Another speaks of a diapason oscillating between two frequencies. Subtle elegance has joined surgical brutality in a marriage that led to disaster and the death of hundreds, and we are going to activate it. Only a few key elements could bear modification in that delicate framework. I will have to attempt it. We need to clear more space. I must alter the circle. Why? Anatole asks with suspicion. Because, I tell him as I clear growth with my own hands, there are many more of us and we have much less time. I need to allow the spell to feed from more members while decreasing the casting time, unless you believe that we can stay until late afternoon on the next day. Anatole does not comment and directs the mortal mages to work instead. They are their servants, distrustful yet disciplined. They clear the vegetation as fast as I can carve new elements with rows. I feel my intuition pushing me forward now and I know why. My death is imminent. Perhaps that Ver have access to defensible facilities but I will not. I will be one of the easiest fighters to pick off with the other low-ranking knights. That, or the world guides me once again. With a sure hand, I inscribed the last circle to allow mortals to slave their power to me. We will need all the help we can get in this great endeavor. Failure is not an option. The bomb must go off. I am absorbed in my task until the spell takes on an organic, living quality. The components appear in sharp relief like superimposed figures instead of grooves in the rock beneath us. The circle lives and grows with me, stroke after stroke, until finally the last piece clicks and the spell hums. It is ready. I am ready. The time is now. A few steps and I am in position, near the center. The mortals take their places without prompting, with Phineas and the Vestal by my side. We raise our hands, and I begin. I speak of our world, of its music and its taste. Of the sun and the moon and the ground under my feet. The spell anchors itself with a low thrum, which only grows in intensity as we go on, a heartbeat of a thing without blood, and yet, alive. The leitmotif comforts me, although it is not truly mine. No, mine is deeper. I spare a glance to the eternal presence of the Watcher. I had forgotten its beauty those past few nights. It gazes on, more subdued than usual. It does not wish to disturb. I shiver when a strange cheer bolsters my concentration. The first part is done, now for the second. Slowly at first, the diapason twists the world around us and the thrum changes to a different melody. This one speaks of great trees, a golden age, then gouging pain and, finally, death. That song is a dirge and those who first cast the spell should have known that they were fools. 1 hour passes. Another. At some point, someone comes but I ignore him. We must go on. To change the music and fix it is an exhausting attrition battle against our surroundings. Several times, I fear that I might be too fast until a rush of power sets us back on course. 3 of the mages fall unconscious and are carried away. Thankfully, The construct takes this possibility into account. Another hour passes. We are done. The second part of the casting is finished and 3 more mages stumble out of the formation. The third and final part begins now. We have our destination. Now we must breach the veil. The diapason quiets and the shard awakens under our push. This is the last stretch. Do or die. I push power and speak more words. I speak of piercing a fabric that none can sense. The abstract and unfamiliar meaning almost makes me falter, but intuition guides me through the most delicate steps. The fabric of reality might be thick and sear up I hear, unwilling to be seized and much less manipulated, yet the spell has clamped down a minuscule expanse of it, and we will pierce it. The shard looms, a dark sword, or a shark. Something bleak and edged. It hovers near the vulnerable spot like a guillotine blade, but I do not let it fall. It needs to be keener and heavier before we can even make a dent. More mages fall one by one, and with every person leaving us with bloodshot eyes, the burden increases for the rest. Stamina and strength are no longer enough. Now, only willpower can save us. Half an hour passes. Only 13 remain. Another 15 minutes. We are 5 now. The pain is excruciating. Phineas chokes and collapses to the side. Dark blood drips from his mouth as he crawls away. Another 15 minutes. The last mortals fall and turn. The Vestal leaves. Only I remain in a sea of power and agony. Whispers drill into my ears. Thunderous magic cracks at my fingertips. I close my eyes. The blood covers them anyway. It hurts. Almost as badly as going rogue. Need just a bit more. The needle hangs over the chasm. Almost ready. And then, it happens. The first hint of the coming down caresses my mind. I am out of power. The last dribble of energy leaves me. So thirsty? Losing control. No, no. I will not fall here. I roar, and pull. In the urgency, something explodes within me. Weak black roots surge from the earth with the last of my reserves. Another loss of control, but this one proved useful after all. The clearing is empty. Almost everyone has evacuated. The final surge pours into the spell and something clicks. Pierce the veil. The spell is a needle going through meat if the needle were the size of a ship of the line. I open my eyes and clear away the blood as the last of my hour leaves me. Before us, a luminous circle expands in the darkness that comes before the aurora, an aperture into a world of empty, cold daylight that fails to burn. Mesmerized, I walk forward and look through. We stand on a stone platform hanging over a void, and around us, our goal expands as far as I can see. The last city. A maze-like, impossible structure that dives into the abyss below and climbs to a sky of perpetual ash. Hive-like, bulbous blocks of sickly yellow extend in colossal fingers, their surface covered in windows like necrotic sores. The stench of unwashed humanity permeates the air despite a chill wind, while the landscape weeps artificial misery and generational despair. The platform we stand on is empty and bare. A corner reeks of urine. Somewhere far above us, a child screams in agony. Last city servant's houses up there, Karshu says in a subdued voice. Only he and Anatole have stayed until the end. The vampire is dragging our bomb to the empty space. House of the Eighth is to the right, he adds. We 3 go through. It is day on the dead planet. Karshu currently points at the man-made mountain adjacent to the platform. While the others remind me of sick, bloated trees infested to their cores, this one stabs up in a dizzying display of obsidian designs and chthonic architecture. There are no windows here, only smooth, glassy surfaces punctuated by sharp angles. Will the bomb even breach that fortress? Anatole whispers. I can barely hear him. I am so weak. Yes. Then start it now. We have little time. I lurch to the sarcophagus and slide the lid with some difficulty. Karsha helps while Anatole keeps vigil. I push a button and hear the ping of the active mechanism. It rings like a death knell in the unnatural silence. We move back and through the aperture with haste. How do we close the thing? Anatole asks, and I realize that I cannot do it. I am too exhausted. And we are running out of time. Put some blood on your hand, then place it here and say close. Here? Yes, hurry. Tick tick tick. Karshu steps away from the circle with terror in his eyes. The aperture closes. Slowly. Too slowly. Get on the other side, I wheeze. We move around. From the back, the portal just looks like distorted air. The bomb detonates. I assume that the bomb detonates. For the barest of instants, impossible, he touches my skin with the promise of oblivion. My vision goes white, and, when I open my eyes again, the portal is closed. Far in the distance, we hear a rumble and see a great fire. The night comes alive with the tweets of distant birds. In front of us, something has seared a cone into the landscape. It starts thin, but then expands until I see burning vegetation on a faraway hill. Within the cone, all is dark and smoldering. By the eye, Anatole says. So strong, Karshu whispers. His dark eyes are full of worship. We have no time to rejoice. We have no time for anything except hiding. We cannot dally. The sun will rise soon. Anatole, I used my essence. I will need some help to return. I am too weak. Oh, I know, he replies. A shove. I am flying through the air, then awkwardly down the cliff. By some ancient instinct, I curl into a ball and protect my head. A crack. Pain. My pelvis is shattered. I gasp. But how? He threw me? Impossible? Impossible. Would that not break the oath? Is he using a loophole? Karshu lands next to me, spine broken. His honest face twists in pain and disbelief. He is dying. The sun is almost up. With a muffled cry, I roll on myself and crawl. I am too weakened. I cannot heal. I have one chance, only one chance. I am sorry, I tell him, and bite down. His essence is rich with the power of fate. I kill his pain as soon as I regain a smidgen of power. I am sorry, I say again. He smiles and breathes one last time. I taste the sweet savor of apple on my tongue. Dawn is almost here. I must hide now, but tomorrow, Anatole dies. In tomb. The earth takes me. Chapter 154. For the first time in my second life, I wake up in absolute panic. I cannot move, I cannot see. The presence of the sun weighs on my mind like a yoke. A deafening silence assails me and deprives me of even a limpet of information. I believe that my time has come. I shall be stuck in limbo for all of eternity, finally punished for the murders and the greed in pursuing naughty activities with Tauran. It takes me far too much time to realize that it is, in fact, a normal and predictable state of affairs. I am underground. Terror soon gives way to fear. I acted in desperation last night, and crawled underground as soon as I could. In truth, I should have waited until the last moment. That Anatole could have felt me cast a spell and come to investigate, thus putting me at his mercy. I may yet be a victim of the skeleton mages as they scour the land in fury. Any time now, a bony knuckle will pierce the soil and grab me like a doll before drawing me up to a fiery demise. It does not happen. A cursory inspection of my aura reveals that the glow is gone, dispelled, as it were. I am free of any mark. I am still wearing Nashoba's earrings, of course, I just would not bet on them over the power of the eighth. My worries dissipate under the smoldering embers of rage. That mongrel. That despicable, backstabbing, oath-breaking son of a flaccid baboon. The lily-livered roach-brained overgrown scullion. That fucking asshole. I will skin him, dress him, then spirit roast him on a red-hot poker. Ugh. How did he even do this? I distinctly remember taking the oath. It said, and finally, do you promise to protect and support your fellow knights as if they were your own blood? Anatole cannot possibly have skipped this step. I consider the question for a solid 20 minutes and find only two possible explanations. Anatole does not see me as a fellow knight, or that is how he treats his own blood anyway. This is the kind of risk and loophole one has to work with when forcing oaths upon vampires. It would still mean that he went against the rules by knowingly putting me in danger at the very least. He should be hurting right now. He will hurt much more when I get my talons on his sorry, flea-ridden hide. Poor Jimena must be worried that I have gone missing. I must be sure to find her soon. Speaking of which, what should I do? How do I take revenge? Betrayal or not, I am still a squire of the order, and I have a duty to let my hierarchy handle it. It means joining my team and reporting the crime. Fortunately, more detailed oaths and interrogation can lure out the truth. I also believe that attempted murder on a fellow knight should be punishable by death. While I would prefer to drain him myself, I cannot deny that there is a certain beauty in having the order he swore to defend do the deed in my stead. Bah, what am I even considering? I swore 10 years of my life to those glorified thugs. I have to follow the law. To skew a mission to serve my own purpose is one thing. Breaking the laws for the sake of vengeance is another, a clear violation if there are any. Once more, I am struck by the limits of oaths on vampires whose vision of the world differs from. Oh, who am I kidding? The limits of oaths on morally ambiguous, backstabbing little pricks like Anatole. Truly, Constantine accomplished a miracle by creating laws both restrictive and specific, so that the manacles remain small yet inflexible. My mind is wandering. I find it hard to focus on any single topic, between my unpleasant circumstances, the anger in my heart and the sun above me. What if Anatole obtained the blessing of his hierarchy to let an accident happen, should fate choose this path or some other trite nonsense? What if this is a purge? No, I must focus. I am not some timid fledgling. These doubts serve no purpose. I will wait and I will find my way back, carefully. After that I will present my case. Yes, this is an acceptable plan. Now to ignore the moist soil pressing all over me. Since I do not suffocate, the sensation does not lead to panic and a reflexive intake of breath. I just worry that some slimy worm might crawl into my nose by accident. That would be dramatic. No, everything will be fine. I just have to wait. And wait. Slowly, late afternoon gives way to early evening, and then, night. I feel it's coming and burst with impatience, yet once the last rays of the radiant beam disappear, I do not explode out of the earth like a rapid mole. I allow the spell to carry me to the surface and open my eyes as I lay on the ground. No aura. No strange smell. No suspicious light burning on the horizon. Only the normal scents of the forest grace my nose, though the stench of carrion is prevalent on account of poor Kershu's remains left to rot under the summer sun. After a few moments, and satisfied that nothing is actively tracking me, I emerge from the crumbling soil and sigh. I am, of course, filthy. With a heavy heart, I grab the body by my side and walk to find a path up. If Anatole made up some lie about the prisoner, it could work as proof. I would also like to bury him. He really tried his best in the pursuit of freedom, and it is a struggle I can sympathize with and deserves my respect. I can easily find my way back to the base under the brewery. I merely need to watch my step. Kershu's blood still sings in my core. He was very close to human. It makes me wonder how we can be so similar. I walk to the top of the incline, keeping my guard up, and stop to take in the new landscape before me. Entire parts of the forest have been torched. Some are still smoldering quietly under the nightly breeze, while columns of men bearing torches patrol the valley. An elevation blocks my line of sight so that I cannot see the exact state of the invader camp, yet the sentries wear native, mundane clothes. It appears that our foes were successfully pushed back. I always knew that explosives were the solution. We just had to use a lot of it. I shake my head and accelerate. If the humans can so freely tread the plains, then it means that I only have the coming ordeal to fear. I retrace my steps back to the place where the shield stood and see signs of damage in the earth. It appears that our superiors, and I am employing the term reluctantly, brought tools to help with their attempt. Come to think of it, I remember that someone came to interrupt us, just before the last of the mages and my companions left. What did they say? I search my memory for the fugacious moment. What was it? Oh yes, something about evacuating and spreading out to limit the casualties. Afraid. Weak. I was right to ignore them. Now, to find them. I keep going. I reach the outskirts of the abandoned village to see that it is occupied by the mortal army. I have nothing to tell them and so weave between groups to go on my way. They appear to have buried and burned the dead. I keep my guard up just in case something happens. After the ceaseless crisis of the past 3 days, I can hardly believe that I walked a few miles without anything actively trying to kill me. The first excitement of the evening occurs just as I leave the camp and feel a familiar yet troubled aura rush towards me. I have never felt her so panicked. I flare my own in answer, and she swerves violently. A few moments later, Jimena is in sight. Then she slams into me, and picks me up under my armpits. Kershu's body falls to the side. Jimena is a picture of grief and terror. Her normally stoic face is twisted and barely recognizable. "It is you. Really you?" she whispers. "Yes." I am pulled into a very, very tight embrace. Since Jimena is on the short side, I end up with my head above and behind her shoulders while she buries hers in my armored bosom. I pat her awkwardly, and she sniffs in a way that makes me feel sorry for being so dusty. When she finally puts me down, I understand. 2 red trails drip down her cheeks. "I thought you were dead. I would have never ever forgiven myself. Ever. For sending you here." She smiles despite her tears and grabs my hand. She guides one of my fingers to her cheek and I pick up a single sanguine droplet. In my half a century of existence, I do not think that I had ever tasted vampire tears. The droplet lands on my tongue and fades away immediately. It only leaves behind a vague, salty taste. My heart gives a powerful thump and I lurch forward under the sudden onslaught of sensations. Worry clamps on my chest like glacial claws, soon followed by guilt. I left the one who trusted me alone. Then I grieved because I killed her, I caused her death. The emotions explode in me in a way that I have not felt since Nirari killed me. They are full-bodied emotions that touch my chest, throat, mind, and soul. I gasp as they take and carry me away. Joy and relief replace the negative feelings with a torrent of warmth and pleasure. I fall on a knee. "Strong stuff, huh?" Jimena sobs. I still had to return the favor. It takes me a moment to understand her words, so moved and flustered I am. The foreign emotions linger and I feel flushed and alive. My heart is beating, and I have to breathe to feel whole. A distant part of me acknowledges that this is an illusion, a phantasm of a world lost forever. The rest of me cares not. I once gave her my tears back in the vampire fortress an eternity ago. The circle is now complete. It takes a little while for Jimena to finally release me. She sits heavily on a nearby stone and speaks in a low voice. She is still affected. "After Anatole told us that you two were separated after the explosion, I feared the worst. I fell into slumber against my will knowing that you had most likely perished. I ran here telling myself that I was looking for your ashes, but I was lying to myself. I held on to that last tiny spark of hope that you had survived. And I was right. I imagined that you found a cavern of sorts? No, I use a spell to submerge myself under. Good, excellent. I forgot how resourceful you were." She looks up. "I brought you here thinking I could support you. Instead, I was ordered to pull out when we gave up on the wall. It was my fault to assume that the order would allow personal feelings to matter. I failed you, Ariane. No, you followed your oath, as I expected. More importantly, Anatole and I were not separated. He tried to kill me." Jimena's mouth opens in utter surprise, then she stands up and rushes me yet again. "Are you? But how? How?" I relay the events to her, including the detonation of the bomb and Kershu's death. Jimena's answer is immediate and thunderous. "Oh, that little. He told us. Oh, the spineless, unlawless bastard. I will see him die for this transgression. We must away. I cannot rest while he dishonors the uniform." I nod in understanding and pick up Kershu's body again. We move fast now, needled by her mounting anger. I do not think that I have seen Jimena truly furious before, but I do now. Her aura flares dangerously. We reach the secret base in record time, and find a group of knights gathered before an armored carriage. They're loading supplies. Both Anatole and my team are there, as well as Marlon, who supervises recruitment and training back at Cloudhaven, the fortress. We have come upon the junior group. I spare a glance at Jimena to ask her how we should proceed. I need not have bothered. She struts down the main path with the fury of all the women ever scorned. Anatole, you stand accused of attempted murder on a fellow knight. Yesterday, you waited until Squire Ariane was exhausted and pushed her off a cliff, breaking her body on the rocks below. You executed the prisoner Kershaw to avoid witnesses. You returned to us and claimed that you had not seen her and that you did not know where she went, twisting the truth through technicalities and half-lies. You are a betrayer, a coward, and a disgrace. Marlon, please take this man into custody. I stand by her side in all my grimy glory. Phineas and Esmeralda smile while Team Aspen stands shocked, their gaze going from Jimena's angry shape to a silent Anatole and back. Marlon turns to Anatole, voice cold and a look full of distrust. Anatole. Squire Ariane is clearly out of sorts. I did not attempt to kill her. Technically the truth, since he left me to die. I hate people like him. I could never say such a thing, because I would be betraying the spirit of the truth. You created a situation where she would be helpless under the sun, you motherless cur. Your sophisms will not save you now. Marlon, Jimena and Ariane have clearly been under a lot of stress these past few days, and they are known, shall we say, excitable persons. I do not doubt that they believe their own words, yet perhaps Ariane's memories of the events are a bit skewed. We are also known to be honorable, and Ariane is a devourer with captured Rosenthal essence. She has a better memory than all of us combined. Pa, why am I arguing with someone who was exiled from America for unethical behavior? Marlon? The vampires have gathered around us now, their expressions cold but their auras uncertain. We form a circle with Jimena, Marlon and Anatole at the center. Curiously, I have been swallowed by the circle with Phineas and Esmeralda standing by my side and definitely defensive. The other team shows circumspection, however. Their support is not as unquestioning as I would have assumed. In fact, the Vestal even shows signs of hostility. It occurs to me that Anatole might be a cunt, generally speaking. Not just with me. Marlon takes his time to reply. When he does, his tone is slow and careful. Those are extremely grave accusations made against a knight in good standing with an excellent track record in Europe. We will head back to base, where the situation will be fully elucidated. Good. I will fetch the manacles. No manacles are necessary. Anatole is not under arrest. I would be outraged if I were not so surprised and afraid. Jimena's aura is flaring spectacularly, and what I see of her face looks consternated. Marlon, he could decide to escape. Never mind that, the protocol is clear. Someone accused of violation will be restrained. Manacles are too kind for him. He should be spiked and sealed in a sarcophagus. Calm down, Jimena, you're making a spectacle of yourself. Like hell I am. This is a murder and a betrayal, Marlon. Can you please take this seriously? You overreach. We will look into this troubling matter back at the fortress once emotions have had the time to settle down. Anatole is, as I mentioned, someone who is in very good standing and has proven himself repeatedly in Europe, where our organization has been present for a long time. You bring very serious accusations, and we will consider them carefully. Marlon, you are not listening. This is murder. Murder. I do not like your tone, the other man says as his eyes narrow. I am merely asking you to follow the basic, knight-recommended, standard protocol when dealing with someone suspected of a grave crime. If it were Ariane in this situation, she would already be in chains at the bottom of some carriage. Yes, she would. Some Dvor courtiers timidly emerge from the nearby building to see what the fuss is about. As for me, I do not dare speak. Fate stirs. Anatole has, I repeat, a record of success as a member of our organization with the exception of the disputable American debacle. You will forgive me if I take the accusations of a squire with a grudge with a certain amount of caution. No, I will not forgive. Ariane has honor, while Anatole was expelled for using the squad for his own purpose. I fought by her side many times and vouched for her. I am vouching for her now. Marlon, Follow the damn protocol. You have no right to demand, Jimena, Marlon spits back. Since she arrived, your squire has been a constant disruption, going against tradition every time she could. Giving her wild accusations consideration is already more than I feel is warranted. Jimena takes a deep breath. She feels ready to explode. This is not your call to make. We are knights. We have rules and a code, and one of those is that the accused must be restrained. You are the knight hierarchy here, Marlon. Your action now will show what we really stand for. Will you let your personal feelings get in the way of proper protocol, or will you do your fucking job? They are barely spitting in each other's face. You are out of line, Jimena. You will obey the orders of the hierarchy you claim to respect, or I will have you disciplined. My sister takes a few steps back. Her expression is a glacial mask of distress and barely restrained anger. Do not do this, Marlon. Do not betray what we all stand for. I gave you a warning that you chose to disregard, Jimena. You will surrender your armor and enter the carriage where you will stay confined until we return to the fortress for judgment. You are making a mistake. Will you comply? You are making a big mistake. Marlon takes a step forward, then another back. Jimena has materialized her soul sword, justice. It now hangs in her hand, blade aimed low. I did not join the knights because I wanted to police the world. I joined because the order embodied the values I thought should rule our society. Integrity. Honor. Justice. It has been a rough ride, and yet I have always been proud to count myself one of your numbers. It has changed in the past 30 years. Jimena, you are mad. Drop your weapon. Now. You and a few others have allowed squad leaders to act according to their personal beliefs instead of according to the law. The moment you do so, you are no longer an impartial group fit to administer justice. You are merely one more piece on an overcrowded chessboard. So I am going to ask you one last time, Marlon. Shelve your prejudice and your arrogance, and follow the rules you enforce yourself, or we will reach a tipping point. There will be no going back from this. Do your fucking job, or I swear on everything I hold dear, that I will do it for you. We all take a step back and I consider drawing my blade, but we still stand on the edge and there is still a chance. Which Marlon immediately throws to the wolves. I gave you a chance and still you defy me in the order. I will teach you discipline one heart at a time if I have to, Jimena. I will give you one last chance to regain your sanity. This is not insubordination. This is treachery. Oh, the fool. The fool. Jimena swore already. It is done. Over. My sister still has not moved, however, and Marlon does not dare act first. How did it come to this? We all must decide what we stand for, Marlon. I saw a world of favors and nepotism. I saw a country destroyed by corruption and the banditry it led to. I saw the collapse of society because men and women placed their own selfish interest above that of the common good. Because they committed crimes that hurt 100 for the profit of one. I will not stand for it. True justice is impartial. There is only one path to peace and it follows this simple rule. Fiat justitia, ruat caelum. Let justice be done, though the heavens shall fall. The knights have failed to uphold their own rules. I repudiate you. I declare you in failure of your oath. Marlon, you sacrificed justice for peace. You will get neither. Magna. Arca. Jimena's aura explodes. Its cataclysmic flare increases in power in mere instants. It doubles, triples. It keeps growing. We are all forced back under the incredible onslaught of unleashed power. The arrogant lord is pushed back and draws his own soul sword to face the world's newest battle lady. Jimena's eyes blaze purple. She points her sword at Marlon and speaks with a voice like an angry chorus. You are judged guilty. A link forms between the two just as Jimena's blade twists, taking a serpentine shape. One moment they are away, the next, Jimena's blade is embedded deep inside Marlon's shoulder. Transparent wings spread from her shoulders. Magna Arca. He gasps. His body disappears and reappears a few feet away. Wand not so much closed as denied. Jimena does not care. She lays into him and smashes him against the nearby wall, scoring another wound. We are left behind. We are now spread across the factory's front yard. The courtiers have decided to make themselves scarce. Anatole is taking a few steps back. No one else has reacted yet. I feel shame at hesitating. Of course, I know what I must do. It is the most natural thing in the world. I survived an attempt on my life by a fellow knight, only for his superior to dismiss my claim. I declare the order to be oath breakers. I renounce being a knight and spit on their poor excuse for honor. I draw arrows and take a step forward. I will fight by my sister's side against an army if I have to. I almost expect pain, yet the oath dissolves in my mind. I am no longer a knight. They have failed me for the last damn time. I will never allow someone else that much power over me as long as I live. I have witnessed knights betray the spirit of their oath, and will not associate with betrayers. I renounce the knights. Phineas winces in pain, yet he takes a resolute step forward. He pulls his thin sword from his sheath, waiting to see who will take sides. Esmeralda also speaks. Knights are no better than the others. I spit on their treachery and reclaim my freedom. Anatole manifests his sword and dagger and faces me. Squad, we shall subdue the traitors. There is no ovation. Both sides are at fault and you most of all, Anatole. I withdraw myself from the conflict, his Vestal says. She leaves uninterrupted. The axe-wielder and the swordsman, whose name I never bothered to learn, take his side, but Manfred does not. The progress-obsessed fighter picks his shield from his back and addresses his fallen leader. Can you realistically swear an oath that you did not allow Ariane to die? Anatole freezes, eyes calculating. Manfred merely draws his own blade. I have my answer. I declare the knights in violation of their oath and renounce them until they render justice. I have spoken. Traitor. Anatole hisses. Honorless murderer. Manfred roars back, now all pretense at politeness forgotten. The pendulum of destiny swings silently and we throw ourselves at each other. Manfred faces the axe warrior in a careful dance that shows how familiar they are with each other. I rush Anatole. 50 years ago, I was a small young thing and watched him and Suarez perform the dance of death. They had amazed me with their deadly precision. Since then, I have learned its steps too. 20 years ago I may have struggled. I wound him on the third exchange, easily reading through his feint and catching him in the stomach. You had to go too far. I point my gauntlet without looking and unleash a binding spell at the sword-wielder's back. I hear a snarl and a scream, abruptly cut. I parry his next attack, smash the dagger aside and rip part of his throat open in the same back swing. He glares. I smile. Just like last time. I drive him back, scoring wounds on his legs by using my superior range. Anatole and I have never sparred, but I have faced many swordsmen before. He has never faced someone like me. Nashoba was right, you are a false prince. I sever a foot and shove Rose in his shoulder. All looks, no substance. He still fights when I pin him down on the ground, when I push his arms away. He only stops when my fangs latch on his ruined throat. Anatole tastes like mediocrity and a long overdue debt. He falls to ash. Nashoba is avenged. The architect of my suffering is dead. I feel strange. I would have expected revenge to taste sweeter, yet this time Jimena unexpectedly stole the spotlight. She is still laying into a massively outclassed Marlon, who has only lasted so long because he periodically blinks away with one less wound. The fight on our side is over with the two masters disabled. We gather and watch Jimena finish the job. At some point, Marlon tries to escape. The light binding them shortens then, and Jimena delivers the coup de grace. Her sword skewers the man's heart and the follow-up sends his head flying. Soon, only ash remains. So. Yes. As the sounds of combat die down and Jimena's power dwindles, I am assailed by the realization that we just killed two members of one of the most dangerous organizations in the world in cold blood. This might be suboptimal. Did you really have to kill them? Manfred asks, nonplussed. To be fair, it did not even occur to me to leave Anatole alive. He tried to kill me 3 times over a period of 50 years with minimum interactions in between. Why would I ever let him have another chance? Manfred nods grudgingly while Jimena stumbles back to me. She looks exhausted, much more so than any other lords I have seen deploying their Magna Arca. I suspect that the first trigger might be special. That would explain why she merely trounced an experienced warrior. I may have been hasty, she finally declares as the reality of our action settles in her mind. Why yes, we could have followed the proper chain of command and simply complained to Octave, however we ran the risk of being discredited, have more attempts on our life or Anatole simply fleeing, which would have perhaps hurt his essence but not killed him. It is done now. Where are Octave and the others? In Krakow proper, participating in a celebratory banquet. Experiencing the local flavor, so to speak. There are courtiers gaping at us. I do not doubt that a messenger is already on its way. We must run as fast as we can. The knights will kill us without doubt for slaying one of their own. I will get the rest of my gear from my quarters. I suggest that you do the same. I will not join, Esmore says. You are too human. I will return to what I trust. Then good luck to you, I tell her with no resentment. She was here when it mattered. Her fate is her own. Esmore nods and turns into a wolf. She is gone in moments while we rush in and recover whatever we can. I have 1 powder charge remaining. It might prove useful. My Dverger armor is lost to me now. I will never recover it from the Cloudhaven fortress. We reconvene at the entrance and I ask the others to follow me. We are heading southwest. Quickly. And we are off. Jimena clearly suffers from some mental exhaustion, yet she is still the fastest on account of her newly found power. I wish we could celebrate her ascension. We leave the city behind and ride into the wilderness at full speed. Once we are far enough away, I call Metis and Jimena calls her Nightmare. The proud creatures allow us another rider, although I can tell Metis does not like it one bit. Fallow fields soon give way to more fields, then to lost villages and forested areas. We never slow down. I take a few moments of introspection to accept in my heart that we are most likely done for. We are days away from the nearest port. Soon, we will be pariahs in every court of the continent. The situation is disastrous. I am sorry, Jimena says, eyes clouded. I think I killed us all. Now they will try to make an example out of us. You acted with conviction, Jimena. Sometimes, you have to accept bleak odds if it means reminding the other side that they cannot act with impunity. In a way, I feel better now than yesterday, I reply truthfully. I forced your hand. You did not. I could have let Anatole run. I agree with Ariane. You only know if you are a person of principles when holding them proves inconvenient, Manfred says. Out of all the causes to die for, justice is a worthy one, Phineas adds. Jimena takes a moment to digest our words, then she gives us one deep nod. Thank you. After that, we no longer speak. The nightmares are fast but the additional weight seems to tire them despite their immense strength. Manfred finally decides to drop from Jimena's saddle and run by her side. Better for the 2 more dangerous fighters to keep their strength. Phineas soon mirrors him and we pick up speed again. This will exhaust their essence and make them thirsty, yet I do not object. We must create as much distance between the rest of the knights and us as we can. The race continues for an hour or 2. At first, I think that we have succeeded but I realize that I am mistaken when my instincts scream. I flash rose and deflect a thrown knife coming right at Metis. A shape flickers in a nearby thicket. What was that? Phineas asks. That was Lestra, Jimena groans, the shade expert. Ah yes, the trainer. They are already on our trail. Jimena takes out her blade and artfully deflects another knife. She is trying to delay us. Keep going, I say. I know that Lestra has access to a lot of interesting tools. We are lucky that she had to come at us unprepared. I still almost scream when the light wind produces the slightest whistle in front of us and I cut a wire before Metis can hit it. I deflect another knife immediately after and destroy it. Lestra runs and hides at the edge of our field of vision. She is taunting us. Sometimes, I catch a dark, furious glint in her brown eyes. It comes with a sneer when I hear the first sounds of pursuit, a low drum of hooves on packed earth. We are hunted. They will dismount and accelerate when they get close enough, Jimena says. How can they be so fast? Phineas moans. He is still running at full speed. Nightmares go faster the more of them there are, I reply, remembering the charge at Black Harbor. We will not lose them. I feel the tug of fate. My intuition is pushed to overdrive since death haunts our steps, and I know we have a way to create distance. It is simple really, and has the added benefit of teasing Jimena. I keep my nose to the wind and lead us onto a road as soon as we come across one. What are you doing? Jimena hisses. Finding us a diversion. She grunts in assent, then her expression turns to worry, then naked terror when she catches the scent I have been searching for. Ariane, no. Ariane, yes. It will not go well. It will go exactly the way you think it will. We rush into a sleepy village, finding large wooden barns near the main road. I dismount and grab a pair of lanterns from the local tavern's front door. What are we doing? Phineas asks with terror. You are running, and I will give you the opportunity to do so. Go. Now. Jimena is the first to run away. I turn and see a great mass of knights entering the road behind me. I do not hesitate and throw the lanterns at the feet of several of the barns, setting them ablaze. I launch my powder charge as well. Yes. This will be glorious. The group of knights slows down. I see Octave, who looks unusually cold, Lestra, and the full squads. He brought everyone. They stop as I raise my hands to the sky. Squire Ariane, entropy cannot be stopped. Everything happens at once. The powder charge explodes, sending burning planks and embers flinging through the air. Humans scream in terror, while behind me, 100 terrified squeals of agony turn the village into a particularly heinous circle of hell. Incendiary swines crash through doors, walls, and people while the vampires try and fail to keep their mounts in control. A master is impacted by an inexplicably airborne specimen and is sent careening into his companions. Chaos spreads unfettered. I laugh maniacally and disappear into the darkness. Tobe continued,